In his desperate search for peace and identity fulfillment, Walt underwent gender reassignment surgery 40 years ago. He identified as a woman for 8 years, but he didn't find the ultimate peace that he was looking for until his decision to face the pain that was driving him. Through effective psychotherapy and deep faith in God, Walt was restored to his male gender, but most importantly, to his identity of loved, accepted, and reconciled to God. My guest today is using his unique perspective as a former insider to protect children from unnecessary, irreversible medical interventions. He also mentors those who want to leave the transgender life, and he's here to talk about it. Hello, friends. This is Brenda Crouch, and I want to welcome you to Inside Voice. For the next 30 minutes, we'll share secrets, stories, and insights about what drives your everyday decisions. This is your safe place to unfold the mysteries that speak to path and purpose. They are simple yet profound. So take a seat at the table and welcome to Inside Voice. We're talking with my guest today, Walt. And Walt, I want to thank you for being with us today on Inside Voice. It's an honor to have you here.
It's my pleasure. Thank you. Actually, it's my honor to be on today. Thank you.
We appreciate you, friend. And you know, what we're talking about today is quite honestly a very controversial and very polarizing topic in today's culture. And I just really want to lay a groundwork that we are not here to shame anyone, to condemn anyone, but we want to bring the truth and honesty of your story, your testimony, and what God has done in your life to really give hope to people who are hurting. All of humanity, every one of us needs redemption and restoration. And that's something that oftentimes people don't understand about who the person of Christ is. So I'd love for you to unpack the meaning of that by first just sharing your story. Tell us a little bit about your childhood and where things began for you in the area of your identity confusion, specifically gender identity.
Yeah, thank you. Well, it started in Los Angeles, California in 1944, quite a long time ago, in a little town called Highland Park, right off of Figueroa. And so what happened was that, this was wartime, and my mom was a very young mom when she had me, and she already had my brother. And she really, sadly, I learned many years later, really did not want a second child. It was just too much of a burden for a young mother during wartime. And so that led me to understand that I was unwanted. I mean, I could really feel that I was unwanted. And my mom, I don't ever remember her telling me that she loved me. She just put up with me. But I think in an effort for me to try to be accepted, when I was at her mother's house, grandma's house, I started cross-dressing at 4 years old. I think, as best I can understand, in an effort to try to be accepted, because no one seemed to like me as a boy. And so maybe they would like me if I was a girl. And so I cross-dressed. Grandma told me how cute I looked.
Yeah.
She made me a purple chiffon evening dress. And it was our little secret, though. Grandma didn't want anybody to know. So for 2.5 years, we dressed in this dress and paraded around and was affirmed and so forth. But looking back on it now at age 82, I realized many years later that when you're cross-dressing a boy and telling me he's a girl, what you really realize is there's something wrong with you as a boy. That's so significant. And so I think that's where it was, whether it was a gender thing or an identity thing, it's just that I wasn't accepted unless I was wearing a dress.
Wow.
And so that's significant. And so 2.5 years into this, I became so accustomed to being affirmed in that purple dress, I took it home so that I could secretly dress. My mom found the dress. My dad heard about it. Then things blew up in the house because Dad never knew about it. And people don't like a mother-in-law keeping secrets about what they're doing to their son. So he was very upset. And so in his effort to try to fix me, he used a hardwood floor plank for discipline. I think he was trying to man me up.
Yeah.
And then his adopted brother, because of the purple dress, decided that I was fair game to be sexually molested. So
Oh,
if you just look at this before I'm 9 years old, the purple dress, the cross dressing, totally destroyed my life. It started
wow.
though because someone never told me that they loved me, and I
Mhm.
was trying to be loved, and I
Mm,
didn't know how to do it as a young boy.
mm.
So that cemented within me that there was something wrong with me, that I was never going to be right with myself. And so no one had the terms that we have today, because this was in the 40s. And it wasn't until around 1953, Christine Jorgensen made the headlines as a soldier that had been changed genders, I think in Germany or somewhere. And then I thought, oh, that must be me. That was my
Mhm.
first clue to attach myself to this ideology.
Mhm.
And so from then on, I just kept it a secret, saying, well, that must be me. And I was never homosexual. I never had
Mhm.
that going on. And in fact, the thousands of people I work with, 90% of them who identify as a female, men, are not homosexual at
Yeah.
all. Most of them have had some adverse childhood experience that
Very
happened to
different.
them.
Mhm.
Yeah. So,
Mm.
I had a girlfriend in high school, and I had a 34 Ford with a Corvette motor. I mean,
Mm.
from the outward appearance, I was a
Right.
guy, a little
Mm.
guy. I ran track, I played football, but I was struggling with the idea that there was something wrong with me that had
Wow.
started and was implanted in my head.
Wow. That's really heartbreaking, actually, for me to hear and to hear about the abuse that took place in your early life as a direct result. Your father not really understanding how to influence you, and at that time culturally things were very different then, and it really points to the fact that we have a problem amongst ourselves with being fractured as people, fractured in
Mhm.
our relationships and not understanding how to affirm one another. And I think that that's a basic human need, is to be seen and to be heard, to be seen for who we are and to be celebrated. And that's the thing that, like you, I have a very different story, but like you, it took me years to come to the place of actually seeing that the person of Christ celebrates me for who I am outside of my shame and all the things
Mhm.
that were attached to the violations that took place in my own childhood. So I really want to kind of speak to that issue of affirmation and because would you say that this is I know you went through years of psychotherapy and you've been ministered to a lot, and there have been a lot of layers probably to your healing, and I do want to get into that. But is this a matter of mental illness, as some have said, or is this a spiritual situation? Can you unpack that for us a little bit and
Sure.
shed some light on the confusion about what's happening with gender dysphoria?
Yeah. Well, I've written a lot about this, and I've worked, as you know, I've worked personally with literally thousands of individuals
Mm.
who have come to my website, Sex Change Regret, because they found that having the surgery and hormones actually failed them. But what I've
Mm.
learned from them and my own experience sort of typifies what happens. And what we know today, there's actually a word for what happened to me. It's called adverse childhood experience. They're called ACEs. And it's a clinical term. There are trauma therapists that deal with ACEs, and so a good sound approach to this is to understand that someone who suffered any kind of abuse, loss, death, yeah, any of those things fall under a category
Yeah.
of adverse childhood experience. That
Mm-hmm.
anything that happens like this prior to the age of 17 actually is known to alter the brain at the
Mm.
level of where our identity is being formed. So
Wow.
affirmation is important, but there's wrong affirmation and there's good affirmation.
Yeah.
So affirmation by
Good.
itself is not really what
Mhm.
we're talking. Had I been affirmed as a boy,
Right.
that would have been proper.
Right.
When we affirm someone in the idea that they can change genders, we're actually not telling them the truth. And because I lived the life for 8 years, and my uh, surgeon who did the surgery, I challenged him in California Superior Court, San Mateo, in 1990 to testify to the court that hormones and surgery and all of the protocols that I went through changed me from a male to a female. And his affidavit document that's listed in court, filed in court, says no. The only thing, according to the doctor who performed 5,000 of these surgeries, is that the only thing you can do is neuter a boy or make it impossible for a girl to be able to bear children. So this has a lot more to do with your reproductive system.
Yeah.
And a clinical psychologist from Stanford University told me when I was going through this early on that it was really a change of persona and not a change of gender.
That's a good point.
That, biologically speaking, as we sit here today, so far, no one has ever been able to actually change their biological gender. What we're changing with hormones and surgery is our persona. You and I know from the biblical standpoint that when the sperm hits the egg 9 months before you're born, that you are formed in the womb, and that is what God has formed us to be. And so I think the first clue that always kind of upsets me is that when somebody says, "What gender were you assigned at birth?" Nobody's gender is assigned at birth. It's innate, fixed, and unchangeable at the time of conception.
So powerful. The scriptures say that we were fearfully and wonderfully made, and we also that we were made in the image of the Godhead. And I think there is so much painful confusion over the issue of identity just alone. If you just remove even the gender factor from it, I think there's a lot that's rooted in this issue of being hijacked and wounded within. I've read about something called primal wounds, which you pointed to just a moment ago, in that when there are traumatic experiences in children's lives, what takes place often is called a primal wounding, and that actually will begin to shape and change the identity formation. And that can be expressed in many different kinds of ways. And I think that's really important for us in this culture to be able to really not be afraid of unpacking that and getting to the root of what's going on from a deeper level. Would you say that that's true?
It's absolutely true. In fact, when I work with individuals, I always say, what you're really suffering from is not gender dysphoria. You're suffering from what I call generalized dysphoria. It's much bigger than being specific to gender. It really attacks and attaches to your whole being. It's not just about your gender. And I realize in trying to help people, if I focus on just trying to help them with their gender, I have failed in helping them realize that this is much bigger than just their gender. So that's how I start with people. I say, what we need to work on where this generalized dysphoria came from. And I always ask them, what happened that caused you to not like who you are? And when in working with them, every single person can identify a specific event or time or issue. And some of them will speak to being addicted to pornography. Some of them will admit that it was because of a social contagion. They had several people around them that engaged in transgenderism, so they wanted to be accepted.
Sure.
Others fall into a category where they may be suffering from autism, which is kind of a big factor in this. And then the other ones, many of them have schizophrenia or body dysmorphia. It's one of the words people don't talk about. Body dysmorphia, dissociative disorder is also in there, bipolar 1 disorder and PTSD. So I think if we're really going to help individuals understand where their distress is coming from, we have to open it up to something much greater much
Yeah.
wider, much deeper, and much more significant than
Yes.
specifically gender.
Walt, I checked online before doing this interview, and in 2019, there was a study run that showed that the prevalence between boys and girls with children, because I want to talk about children right now, estimates in male cases, it's 1 per 10,000 males, but it's only 1 in 27,000 with females that they are dealing with this issue of gender dysphoria. And I'm wondering if you have an opinion on that or any thoughts to add to why it would be more frequent with boys than with girls.
Well, I think that's probably true in 2019. I think today, however, I think they're running about even, and maybe even the girls more so, because of what we found out. And I've worked with a lot of young people and families as young as 10 to up to 19 years old in that age group. And what we really have is they identify as having gender dysphoria, but when we spend time with them, what they're really talking about is what we call a social contagion. In other words, they're doing it because their friends are doing it. And sadly, the harm that's done as a result of taking hormone blockers or using hormones for young people. And now I think today there was something that was released. They're going down to as young as 7 or 8 years old with some of these procedures where the parents will approve of it. And so I think what your audience needs to know, we all need to know, is there is a great deal of harm done with these. And we have on our website, we actually listed, I can't remember them all because I'm 82 years old and I can't remember everything. But what we know is that many countries now have stopped these treatments for kids.
Yeah.
And the UK, Sweden, Finland, France, and Norway have all stopped giving children under the age of 18 any kind of hormone blockers, hormone therapies, or gender approving treatments. They do what they call watchful waiting and provide good counseling. So you have some of the leading countries have stopped doing this because they found that the long-term outcomes are not good. And so I think
and those are progressive countries.
Oh, yes, absolutely. And so what we know from taking puberty blockers is a failure to grow, liver damage, mental health problems, skeletal damage, bone thinning, infertility, osteoporosis, cardiovascular disease, brain swelling, vision loss, and that's according to the FDA in 2022. Going through puberty actually develops a healthy brain.
Wow.
So it's important that we don't stop it. And cross-gender hormones cause heart attacks, strokes, liver dysfunction, diabetes, type 2, body and facial hair growth, male pattern baldness, and deepening of voice that is permanent. So these are just a few of the things. And on my website, I've got this pamphlet that details it. The harm is something that not too many people are willing to talk about. Gender affirming care, if we were really to do gender affirming care, we would affirm them the way God made them.
Yeah. Yeah. You pointed to the fact that what that does is when we're affirming the wrong thing, we're actually telling them there is something wrong with you. And that's very problematic. That would be problematic with any other type of body dysphoria or there are many types. And people who struggle with eating disorders, for example, we wouldn't want to reaffirm that thing, but rather get to the root cause of why this is happening. And we're living in a culture that is absolutely reinforcing just one side. And so, speak to us from the perspective of an adult who's gone through all the hormone therapy, of going through that kind of protocol.
Well, many of the surgical things are permanent. And then the hormonal things, quite honestly, the men do not suffer as much long-term problems as the females do. Testosterone in a female, I can tell you, and everyone should understand, is the most destructive permanently damaging therapy that any female can have, because it alters them so radically. And when they find out that it was a mistake and then they contact me and want to detransition, we find the horrors of this. And there's been many movies made about this, documentary movies like Damaged and Disconnected and Transwrecked. Those are three of the most popular ones today.
Yeah.
So I think it's important that we are able to speak to the people who are detransitioning. Now, detransitioning has become a huge thing.
Wow. I think that we're in a time of shaking right now that is getting us to a place that is both painful, the realities that we're surrounded with, but there's an awakening that's happening. And I believe that we're going to get back to the heart of Christ, but how do we go there, Walt? How do we get away from the fear of what we see, what looks foreign to us, what we don't understand, what looks taboo, and how do we apply the heart of Jesus? Because the truth is, if Jesus was living in this day on earth, I mean, he's living, but if he was here on the earth, walking amongst us, just like he did in Jerusalem, then who would he be hanging out with? It would be the people that are the outcasts. It would be the people who are bound and hurting and struggling, the oppressed. And that's what we're speaking to today is the issue of the pain that we carry within our own identity. So can you just speak to the church right now and how we can really look at this through a different lens? Because I believe that it is love that will overcome. Tell us what that looks like.
Yeah, I'm so glad you asked that, because when I am able to help someone, I actually, and I spoke about this earlier, I go away from it being a gender issue. It's much deeper, and it's whether it's spiritual, whether it's a psychiatric issue, or whatever it is. That's what our target should be. And so if I move away from gender and go to the bigger issue, I'm actually able to help people. As long as I'm stuck in this area of talking about gender with them, there's no place to go, because you've sort of bought into their idea. Then, sadly, no one, including me, and according to the surgeon, no one in history has ever changed their gender. So we know that is factual on a medical level because the doctor said so. We know it's factual on a biblical level because we know who created us. And so if a man is coveting a woman's body, think about what the Bible says about coveting, and take it from that point of view. Because there is something wrong with us thinking that we can covet something and take it on and become something that we can't do. So the church really needs to speak and address, I believe, the generalized dysphoria, the deeper issues. And I think we can do that without shaming anybody. And we're not speaking against anyone. What we're really trying to do, and what I do with every single person, is get to the heart of what's caused them to not like who they are. Tell me what happened. Why are you hurting? What was it that happened? And once they are able to identify that, they actually have relief from that, because they all the time have been told, oh, this is about your gender and hormones and surgery are going to fix it. No, what's really going to fix it is a relationship with Jesus Christ and knowing the truth. And that's what changed my life.
Yeah. And those are moments when the Spirit of the Lord comes in to reveal to us something that's oftentimes very personal, but when he speaks, we know that he has spoken. And those are, some people might call it an epiphany or an aha moment, but they're powerful moments. And I believe that if we are aligned with the love of God, which is also his truth, because you can't have the love without the truth. Though they are one and the same, like two sides of the same coin. They are all part of his nature. And if we are aligned with that in his heart, we're going to be able to speak that love and that truth into the lives of very hurting people, and they're all around us, and it's not just in the transgender community, it's everyone. And now you are living, you've returned to being male, you are married, you've got a wonderful ministry, but you've paid a high price for where you are today. And in the next minute, 60 seconds, I would really like for you to minister to someone that's listening today, whether they're in the church, whether maybe there's a transgender person that's hurting, and maybe they've been a little offended at this conversation. Would you just share your heart and minister to them?
Yeah, absolutely. Anybody that's heard this today, all I'm asking them to do is do a bit of self-reflection and go back and consider that maybe this is not about gender. Maybe it's about something that happened. And just consider that as a possibility. And know the Lord just loves you. The Lord wants you. The Lord is seeking you in every way. And if you'll get on your knees and pray for the Lord Jesus Christ to come and redeem you as I did, the Lord came to me in prayer and picked me up in his arms and said, "You are now safe with me forever." That was the day that he redeemed my life. That can happen to anyone if we get on our knees and ask for forgiveness.
Amen. Walt, we love you, friend. We thank you for being a sojourner and being willing to share your story from a vulnerable place. We appreciate you and we bless you, and please come and do this again.
I'd love to. Thank you so much for having me.
And you're available to help those who want to transition back. You're available for ministry opportunities as well. So thank you. And friends, we want to thank you for tuning in to this very important show. And I hope that you will choose to be a light and to be the love of Christ and never shame anyone who is hurting around you. I love you, and I thank you for being here. I'm Brenda Crouch. Thanks for joining us at the table. I hope this video has inspired you to walk closer with God. And if you've been encouraged, leave us a comment below. Here's another video that can speak to your path and purpose, and check out this playlist. Be sure to like, subscribe, and share this video with your friends, and we'll see you next time on Inside Voice.